So
what's kind of like, I know you said you're going to Albania. What are you guys kind of doing there? What's the purpose of that Capital Club event?
Yeah, so the first thing, the reason we picked Albania was it's uncomfortable to get there. I think uncomfort is something that a lot of people run from. Usually when you feel discomfort and you're uncomfortable, it means that you're in a process of growth, or you're in a process of development, or something's breaking down in order to hopefully resurrect something else. So I wanted to go to an environment where people could experience what it is to live a life of high-end luxury outside of America, right? We're talking about, for example, like Miami, we're talking about the prices of like rent, for example, and we're just like, damn, like somebody's out here paying $8,000 for an apartment.
Exactly.
And it makes absolutely no sense. Whereas, bro, you go to Bali with $8,000, you get an oceanfront villa, you're like fucking balling. I want to be able to teach a lot of these entrepreneurs that are coming what it is to be an entrepreneur, successful, have Wi-Fi money, and operate in different dimensions and in different places in the world. The next thing I will say is, to me, it's extremely important to be like location free. And I think a lot of people like bind themselves down with cars, mortgages, all these things, and they weigh themselves down, so they're tied to shit.
They can't really like be able to flow in a certain way as if you weren't like holding like those liabilities.
Correct. So they're tied up to all this bullshit, and then you end up being in a situation where what you want to do, or the freedom that you're pursuing, you're no longer slave to, let's say, a job, but now you're slave to all the bills that you have to pay because you accumulated all these fancy, nonsensical things in order to achieve something that wasn't necessary, right? So I think this idea of exposing what it is to live a multi-millionaire lifestyle in other places of the world, I think is extremely important. So that's kind of like what we're doing. Mentors, networks are super important, because the system wants to make you believe that it's you against the world. Whereas the highest people in society, they don't operate individual units, they operate in conglomerates, they operate in family networks, they operate in home offices, they operate in things like that. So I think at the lowest level of society, people are very, very much isolated and alone, and they don't have kind of that network, that support system, that group, that club that they can access. So having all those things in mind is kind of why we formed Capital Club. Millionaires know how to make money, and billionaires know how to make other people money.
For sure.
If I want to win in life, and the strategy, and I'm writing a book on it right now, which is how to get rich. You know, like it's teaching people how to get rich, and it's not like this fairy tale nonsensical listen to what Luke is saying. No, there are foundational principles, and history repeats itself, and you have to just study the lives of a lot of different successful people, and you can start recognizing patterns. And I started recognizing these patterns, and I recognize these patterns with crypto, I recognize them with NFTs. You can have what is called kind of like a futurist mindset in your ability to take data sets and be able to kind of foresee or have a good guess of what could happen in the world. I know that this is true because of Ray Dalio. Do you know Ray Dalio?
Yeah.
He writes Principles.
Yeah, I read one of the books from recommendations, Changing World Order.
And the guy in the beginning of the book, Ray Dalio, says, I have, a group of researchers, and we research all this information, all this stuff, and we create these theses as to how the world works. The financial system, how these people will operate in these networks are so crazy. I'll share with you two things. The first one, Ray Dalio, he owns Ancestry.com.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
didn't know that.
Yeah. So you go into the terms of and conditions, and they own all the DNA samples. They own all like the genetic code. Wow. They own basically all your historical like evidence, everything that you submit to them, they own.
It's actually really crazy.
Yeah. So now you start seeing this guy that runs the biggest hedge fund in the world now also has access to the biggest kind of network of data sets of human history.
That's actually really
insane. He has that, and then on the other side, I think he has a $15 billion net worth himself.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But then he also talks about in his book your ability to foresee things based off of things that have happened in the past, and that goes back to tying into the point of why did I do Capital Club? Like what brought me to that point? Well, what brought me to that point was I started seeing data sets in entrepreneurs that were matching, and I realized, well, I need to build something that is going to be a support system for me. I'm a multimillionaire, I'm a successful entrepreneur, I've been to 40 countries, I'm in my mid-20s, I fucking crushed it. I'm like, well, I have these needs, this, and this. Well, instead of waiting for somebody to create it, I'm going to create that experience for myself. And I know that people, as they are on their come up, the resources and the essential elements that I need in order to get to the next level are going to be available to them. So that breaks down into 3 pillars.
Sure.
You're going to have education, which is, the foundation for any good decision is your ability to have knowledge. The second one is going to be services, right? So you've probably been scammed in the digital
Oh,
space.
yeah.
Right? So I've been
A
scammed.
lot.
Everybody's been scammed.
Everyone.
Why? Because there's no accountability. One, two, there isn't really a trusted source saying this is legit, this is false, this is good, this is bad, and there's no marketplace consensus that really exists. There's shady websites, stuff like that, but there isn't kind of like a place for club members to come and be like, this is another club member, he offers a service, and kind of having that relational aspect in business, which is why people get scammed, is because they don't have relationships. So whenever anybody comes, it's like, oh, well, I can do this for you. I can get your Instagram verified. They pay 20 G's. They don't get their Instagram verified. The guy blocks and disappears. What are you gonna do now?